working to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Good afternoon, I'm Alma Angeles and you're watching ASEAN in Focus. And we're joined live we're coming to you live from Manila and Vietnam. Hello, Eliana.
Hello, I'm Eliana Sebastian, bringing you the news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines. Protesters in Sri Lanka defied tear gas, water cannon, and a state of emergency to storm the Prime Minister's office after the country's embattled president fled overseas, with the crowd demanding both men step down in the face of an economic crisis. The Philippine Central Bank announced a surprise interest rate hike today, raising borrowing costs for the third straight month and warning more could follow as officials try to rein in surging energy and food prices. The move also follows similar increases around the world as the war in Ukraine and supply disruptions fan inflation and increase the financial strain on households and businesses. And Jolly Queen Elizabeth II of the United Kingdom bestowed the prestigious Gold Cross Medal to UK's healthcare system National Health Service, with the Filipino nurse May Parsons and other UK health leaders receiving it. Sri Lankans residing in the Maldives have started protests against the country's embattled President Gotabaya Rajapaksa in the capital Malé City, following foiled attempts to depart to Dubai and Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. President Rajapaksa fled Sri Lanka in the early hours of Wednesday, arriving in the neighboring Maldives mere hours before he was due to step down from his post over the civilian uprising prompted by the island nation's devastating economic crisis. Steffi Diwan joins us live. Hello, Steffi.
Hello, Alma. Yes, escaping Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa faced protests in the Maldives on Wednesday. Dozens of compatriots urged Malé not to provide him safe haven. Sri Lankan expatriates carrying flags and placards denounced Rajapaksa. Rajapaksa fled his country early Wednesday after protesters overran his Colombo residence at the weekend over the worsening economic crisis in a South Asian nation. As Sri Lankans protested at an artificial beach area in Malé on Wednesday, Special Operations Police confiscated placards and dispersed the demonstrators, witnesses said. Local reports suggested that Rajapaksa was staying at an exclusive resort and would leave for either the United Arab Emirates or Singapore later Wednesday. The Sri Lanka and the Maldives have close ties. A considerable Maldivian community lives in a bigger island nation, while a significant number of Sri Lankans working in education and health and hospitality in the Maldives. Reporting from the Maldives Bureau, this is Stephanie Juan, and may we live in extraordinary times.
Meanwhile, protesters in Sri Lanka defied tear gas, water cannon, and a state of emergency to storm the Prime Minister's office after the country's embattled president fled overseas, with the crowd demanding both men step down in the face of an economic crisis. Let's listen in.
People will just continue this, surely. They are not willing to or ready to give up. Am I right? They are not ready to give up. They will continue this. So whole country will be in a mess. We don't know to what extent it will go, but obviously we all have to suffer.
Eventually he will leave because the protest is becoming very strong and the protesters are becoming strong. So in time to come, I think they have to fall in line. I mean, they can't go on like that because people got frustrated, the forces got frustrated, the general public got frustrated. So obviously they have to leave. There is no other way.
They don't want a single person to rule this country. They need a system change. They are very clear about it. They are not willing to keep a faith in an individual. So Anuro or Sajid, they are not ready. So what protesters want is a system change. and they need the whole system to be changed and not under presidency or anything.
In a televised statement, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe said he had instructed the military and police to do, quote, what is necessary to restore order. But armed security personnel stood by in the grounds of his office as protesters, some holding national flags, knelt and took pictures. Other demonstrators at one point broke into state television studios as the country's months-long political and economic crisis appeared to be moving towards the climax. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, 73 years old, promised at the weekend to resign on Wednesday after escaping his own official residence in Colombo just before tens of thousands of protesters overran it. He flew to the neighboring Maldives early Wednesday. As president, he enjoys immunity from arrest, and he is believed to have wanted to go abroad before stepping down to avoid the possibility of being detained. But midnight passed with no announcement. He had stepped down. In his absence, he named as acting Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, whose own office was soon afterwards mobbed by the crowds, the demonstrators demanding both office holders should go. Rajapaksa is accused of managing or mismanaging the economy to a point where the country ran out of foreign exchange to finance even the most essential imports, leading to severe hardships for its 22 million people.
Around 100 Filipino workers in Sri Lanka have volunteered for repatriation after the financial crisis in the South Asian island further deteriorated into a political maelstrom with the ouster of its president Gotabaya Rajapaksa, a senior official of the Department of Foreign Affairs, said. DFA Undersecretary for Migrant Workers Affairs Eduardo Jose A. de Vega told the Business Mirror that the latest estimate on the number of Filipinos in Sri Lanka is now 700. The DFA is reactivating the quick response team to enable the repatriation of the 100 Filipinos from Sri Lanka. The Philippine Honorary Consul in Colombo is also coordinating with the local authorities in Sri Lanka and the Filipino community leaders in Sri Lanka for the repatriation of the OFWs. In May, around 25 Filipinos signified their intention to avail themselves of the government-sponsored repatriation after the financial crisis in the South Asian country triggered a shortage of basic goods, medication, and fuel, as well as rolling power outages. Angry Sri Lankans took to the streets, with many blaming President Rajapaksa and his family for the situation. They called on the president to resign. A bomb blast near a shopping mall in Myanmar's commercial hub Yangon has killed 2 people and wounded 11, rescue workers and local media said on Wednesday. No group has so far claimed responsibility for the explosion, which took place on Tuesday afternoon as the country marked a public holiday for a Buddhist festival. The Southeast Asian country has been in turmoil since a coup last year, with self-declared People's Defense Forces targeting the military and officials or organizations perceived to be working with the junta. Local media reported that the 2 people killed had died in hospital. Another rescue team said they had taken 6 people to hospital with non-serious wounds. In May, a blast near a bus stop in a busy Yangon neighborhood killed 1 man and wounded 9 people. The junta later said the bomb had gone off accidentally and that the victim had been in contact with PDF groups it has declared terrorists.
In today's other news, President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. is eyeing tourism-driven infrastructure projects in the country, citing the need to improve and strengthen the tourism industry of the Philippines. Marcos, in a virtual cabinet meeting on July 12, noted how Singapore managed and boosted its tourism sector by giving importance to its policy and infrastructures. Marcos also discussed how healthcare facilities in big tourist destinations like Boracay could be improved, as he cited the arrangement implemented in beaches in Hawaii and Thailand. He said that means that it can be done. He said that we just have to support the plan to develop all of these enabling environment, the policy, conditions, and infrastructure, according to the chief executive. The Philippine National Police, or the PNP, will create a task force to oversee the overall implementation of the security measures for the first State of the Nation address, or SONA, of President Bongbong Marcos Jr. at the Batasang Pambansa in Quezon City. That would be on July 25th. PNP Director for Operations, Major General Valeriano de Leon, said that the task force will also work closely with other government agencies for the traffic rerouting, the handling of protesters, and other security issues. De Leon said National Capital Region Police Office Chief Major General Felipe Natividad already presented a security plan for the event to Interior Secretary Benjamin Abalos Jr. last week. Now, based on the plan, around 15,000 policemen, soldiers, and other force multipliers from other government agencies will be tapped to secure the event. De Leon also said the PNP will also designate freedom parks where protesters can hold their programs, just like what was done during the inauguration of Marcos at the National Museum in Manila on June 30. De Leon also appealed to the protesters to give the new administration a chance to lay down the plans and implement them in the next 6 years.
The UN chief on Wednesday described progress between Russia and Ukraine on allowing the resumption of grain exports during unbrokered talks in Turkey as a ray of hope to ease human suffering and alleviate the hunger around the world. Secretary General Antonio Gutierrez said that a critical step forward had been taken to allow the safe and secure export of millions of tons of grain via the Black Sea, but emphasized that no formal agreement has yet been signed between Russia and Ukraine. Let's take a look.
Today in Istanbul, we have seen a critical step forward to ensuring the safe and secure export of Ukrainian food products through the Black Sea. In a world darkened by global crisis, today at last we have a ray of hope. A ray of hope to ease human suffering and alleviate hunger around the world. A ray of hope to support developing countries and the most vulnerable people. A ray of hope to bring a measure of much-needed stability to the global food system. Since the war started, I have been underlining the importance of having Ukraine's food products and Russian food and fertilizers fully available in world markets. I traveled to Moscow and Kyiv to propose solutions for both problems. Every day since, we have been working around the clock with intense behind-the-scenes talks with countless moving parts. More technical work will now be needed to materialize today's progress, but the momentum is clear. In the end, the aim of all parties is not just an agreement between the Russian Federation and Ukraine, but an agreement for the world.
He reminded that the war in Ukraine rages on, but the hopeful news from the Istanbul talks shows the importance of dialogue. Responding to questions from reporters, the Secretary General said that he hoped the first meeting in Istanbul would lead to another very soon, potentially next week. Asked about the wider possibility of a peace deal being reached between Russia and Ukraine to end the fighting, Mr. Gutierrez said there was still a long way to go, although Wednesday's developments were an extremely encouraging sign. Our world is in deep trouble, and so too are the Sustainable Development Goals. That was the message delivered by the United Nations Secretary General at the opening of the 2022 ministerial segment of the high-level political forum on the SDGs. Let's take a look.
Our world is in deep trouble, and so too are the Sustainable Development Goals. Time is running out. But there is still hope, because we know what we need to do. end the senseless, disastrous wars now, unleash a renewable energy revolution now, invest in people and build a new social contract now, and deliver a new global deal to rebalance power and financial resources and enable all developing countries to invest in the SDGs. Let's come together, starting today, with ambition, resolve, and solidarity to rescue the SDGs before it is too late. The ripple effects of Russia's invasion of Ukraine amid a fragile and uneven recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic, while the climate emergency is gathering pace. Some countries are investing in recovery through a transition to renewable energy and sustainable development. But others are unable to do so because of deeply rooted structural challenges and inequalities at global and national levels. The global financial system is failing the developing world. Although, since it was not designed to protect developing countries, perhaps it's more accurate to say the system is working as intended. And so we need reform. We need a system that works for the vulnerable, not just the powerful.
These goals are very critical to ensure that there is equitable growth and development in the world. Today, the world is becoming unequal, and we have seen that inequality does not bring stability. Inequality brings conflicts. Inequality brings polarization. So if we want to see a peaceful world, we must make sure that no country, no region is left behind, and the fruits of development are shared.
Thank you, Honorable Lemon.
The report of the Secretary General on progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals indicates that the multiple and interlinked global crises, the COVID-19 pandemic, the climate crisis, and the impacts of the conflict in Ukraine and elsewhere will lead to an additional 75 million to 95 million people living in extreme poverty in 2022.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. May lalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
As soon as you land at the Bohol Panglao International Airport, you're just 5 minutes away from the major, beach coasts of the island.
We are so much blessed with a lot of diverse natural resources. So we have rivers and waterfalls, we have beaches and sandbars.
Please come to Panglao to see our beautiful white beaches and beautiful corals.
Open for business is in Bohol, and Bohol is open for business.
Open for Business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m.
Abangan sa Lutong Daza. Giniling na baka o baboy, paborito ng mga mami dahil napakaraming pwedeng gawin.
Sa episode na to, gagawa tayo ng all-American meatloaf, arroz a la cubana,
almondigas at tortang talong. Kasama natin ang ating special guest na si J.M. De Guzman, na maski macho, kailangan din ng TLC, tender loving care, paminsan-minsan. Kita-kits sa Lutong Daza.
Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together, let's dance together sa Net25.
Ngayong linggo sa Cine Throwback.
Sino mo kailangan dyan? Nakagandang aso.
No, I don't think you understand me. I said, who is your hero?
What do you mean?
Oh, yes, I mean.
Ngayong linggo, 12:00 ng tanghali. Dito lang sa Net25.
Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together, let's dance together sa Net25.
And the news continues here on ASEAN in Focus. We're still coming to you live from Manila and Vietnam with Eliana Sebastian. And now, residents of the Palaupari, an Indonesian island threatened by rising sea levels, are suing cement giant Holcim over its carbon dioxide emissions, according to a Swiss charity on Tuesday. The complaint was lodged on Monday with a conciliation authority in Zug, Switzerland, where Holcim's headquarters are located. The four plaintiffs told German TV channel RTL on Monday they were seeking compensation from Holcim for damage already caused to their island by climate change, money for flood defenses, and a rapid reduction in the company's carbon emissions. Contacted by AFP, Holcim, which merged with Francis Lafarge in 2015, declined to comment on the legal case, but they said it takes climate action very, very seriously. Holcim told AFP, quote, "We significantly reduced our footprint over the last decade and will cut it further by 2030. Holcim sold its Indonesian activities to local cement maker Semen Indonesia in 2019. But globally, it emitted more than 7 billion tons of carbon dioxide emissions between 1950 and 2021, according to a new study from the US-based Climate Accountability Institute.
Vietnam has reported more than 103,000 cases of dengue fever so far this year, with 37 deaths, the country's Ministry of Health said Wednesday, July 13. Xinhua News Agency said the ministry has urged relevant authorities and localities across the country to launch sanitation campaigns and carry out mosquito-killing tasks once a week in high-risk areas. It also suggested provincial-level and centrally run hospitals mobilize resources to treat severe cases. In the first 6 months of this year, Vietnam recorded 89,120 dengue fever cases, a 1.5-fold increase from the same period last year. The total fatalities from January to June were 34, up 25 from the same period of 2021. The southern Ho Chi Minh City was the epicenter with nearly 25,000 cases and 12 deaths reported over the 6 months, as the number of severe cases posted a 3.5-fold increase compared with the same period last year.
The local government units here in the capital, the National Capital Region, urge residents to avail of the booster shots amid the increase of COVID-19 cases in the country. in Navotas City. The LGU on Wednesday called on its residents to avail of the booster shots to prevent the spike of active cases in their locality. The latest data showed Navotas has only 10 active cases with 219,557 residents fully protected against the pandemic, with 62,201 given first booster shots and 3,892 administered with the second booster doses. In Pasay, Mayor Emmy Calixto Rubiano reiterated the need to continue the strict adherence to the minimum health protocols. The city's 4 active cases on July 4 drastically jumped to 23 cases on July 8, reaching 27 active cases as of date, thus strengthening health protocols and vaccination campaigns to curb the COVID-19 infections. The Pasig City government has likewise urged residents to remain vigilant and be mindful of observing the minimum public health standards at all times, as well as availing of booster shots to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Fully protected San Juan residents are urged to avail of the booster shots as their contributions to the reopening of the local economy amid the prevailing global health crisis. Mayor Francis Zamora, on the other hand, has repeatedly encouraged residents to get their booster shots so that they would remain protected against COVID-19 infection, especially with the emergence of the subvariants.
Secretary General of ASEAN, Dato Lim Jokhoi, met with State Councilor and Foreign Minister of the People's Republic of China, He Wang Yi, at the ASEAN Secretariat on July 11, 2022. During his visit to the Secretariat, the State Councilor also delivered a policy speech touching upon ASEAN-China relations and open regionalism. Wang said at the meeting that China and ASEAN are each other's largest trading partner, and China has always made ASEAN a foreign policy priority, supported the development and growth of ASEAN and the ASEAN community building. The Chinese State Councilor said China was the first to forge a strategic partnership with ASEAN and upgraded it to a comprehensive strategic partnership. Mr. Wang said China firmly supports the current effective ASEAN-led regional architecture, adding that with concerted efforts, China-ASEAN cooperation has shown vitality, making the region the safest and most promising for development.
Meanwhile, the ASEAN Socio-Cultural Community, or ASCC, fact-finding mission to Timor-Leste took place on July 6 to 8. Where the country reiterated its readiness to become a member of ASEAN. The fact-finding mission was held under the leadership of the Senior Officials Committee for the ASCC, or SOCA, chaired by Dr. D. Camboli from Cambodia. ASEAN's delegation comprised of member states officials from the SOCA, ASCC, sectoral bodies, permanent missions of member states to the ASEAN, and the ASEAN Secretariat. Through visits and interfaces with various line ministries and agencies, the mission provided first-hand information and showcased Timor-Leste's programs on health, education and vocational training, employment, environment and forestry, early warning systems, social services and social welfare for vulnerable groups, rehabilitation of women and child victims of violence, information and communications, among others. And with this mission completed, the assessment report will be prepared for consideration and subsequent submission to ASEAN Coordinating Council.
Asian markets fluctuated Thursday as another forecast-busting U.S. inflation print ramped up bets on a quick series of sharp interest rate hikes that traders hope can be quickly walked back once prices are brought under control. The keenly awaited consumer price index came in at a blistering 9.1% in June, the highest since November 1981. As energy costs continue to rocket on the back of rising demand and weak supplies, partly caused by the Ukraine war. Months of soaring inflation have rocked global markets as central banks, fearing prices will run too high, are forced to quickly withdraw the ultra-cheap cash policies put in place at the start of the pandemic. The bank last month unveiled its first 75 basis point rise for 3 decades, and is one of dozens to hike rates. Canada, New Zealand, and South Korea announced hikes Wednesday. The inflation reading followed Friday's surprise spike in U.S. jobs creation, which suggested the world's top economy was withstanding the rate hikes, giving the Fed more room for further increases. Asia was mixed, with Tokyo, Sydney, Wellington, Taipei, and Jakarta all up, but Hong Kong, Shanghai, Singapore, Seoul, and Manila down. While there is a general sense of gloom, eToro Global Markets strategist Ben Leidler said there were some glimmers of hope in the CPI data. Recent falls in supercharged oil and agricultural prices, along with the decline in airfares, provide hope we are near the peak of headline inflation, he said in a note, adding that inflation was the most important number in global markets right now.
And back here in the country, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas surprised markets today with an off-cycle interest rate hike amid threats of broadening price pressures. In a virtual announcement, BSP Governor Felipe Medalla said the Monetary Board decided to raise the interest rate on the BSP's overnight reverse repurchase facility by 75 basis points to 3.25% effective today. Let's listen in.
During this morning's regular meeting, the Monetary Board decided to raise the interest rate on the BSP's overnight reverse repurchase facility by 75 basis points to 3.25%, effective today. Accordingly, the interest rates on the overnight deposit and lending facilities were raised to 2.75% and 3.75% respectively. In raising the policy rate anew, the Monetary Board recognized that a significant further tightening of monetary policy was warranted by signs of sustained and broadening price pressures amid the ongoing normalization of monetary policy settings. The Monetary Board noted that favorable conditions arising from the strong rebound in growth thus far in the year suggest that the domestic economy can accommodate a further tightening of monetary policy. By taking urgent action, the Monetary Board aims to anchor inflation expectations further and temper mounting risks to the inflation outlook in particular. Policy action is intended to help manage spillovers from other countries that could potentially disanchor inflationary expectations. At the same time, the Monetary Board continues to urge timely non-monetary government interventions to mitigate the impact of persistent supply-side pressures on commodity prices. The BSP reassures the public of its unwavering commitment and readiness to take further necessary actions to steer inflation towards a target consistent path over the medium term in keeping with its price stability mandate.
Inflation in June hit its highest in about 3 years at 6.1%. The BSP also said that average inflation for 2022 and 2023 is projected to miss the target range of 2 to 4%.
The Vietnamese Ministry of Construction and the Lao Ministry of Public Works and Transport signed a Memorandum of Understanding on Construction in Hanoi on July 13. The document is expected to create a framework for specific, substantive, and effective cooperation activities between the two ministries, with a focus on urban planning, smart urban development, infrastructure, and housing. Construction Minister Nguyen Thanh Nhi said that visits by senior leaders of the two states in general and the two ministries in particular have contributed to improving the Vietnam-Laos cooperation, especially in the construction field.
The Commission on Higher Education, or CHED, announced the lifting of the moratorium in the opening of the new nursing undergraduate and graduate programs. CHED Chairperson Prospero de Vera said the decision was reached after a thorough review and study of the Commission and Bank of the moratorium on nursing imposed in 2011. Let's take a look.
We do need a lot of nurses. Of course, the criteria here is that we do need nursing items in the Department of Health and in local governments. And also, what has not been factored here is the demand of many of the nurses that the pay in the nursing profession is not very high. And many of our nurses go overseas to work.
On September 2010, CHED Memorandum Order Number 32 stopped the opening of all undergraduate and graduate programs in nursing, BS Nursing, MA Nursing, Master of Nursing, and PhD Nursing, beginning academic year of 2011 to 2012. The moratorium was imposed due to the gradual decline of the quality of graduates and the proliferation of higher education institutions offering nursing programs. The VETA said this led to the oversupply of nursing graduates, with more than 200,000 nurses with no jobs. It was also issued to address the complaints of nursing students that they have to pay hospitals to get on-the-job training and certification. To support the lifting of the moratorium, the VETA presented data from the Department of Health showing that the country needs 201,265 more nurses based on the UN Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, requirement.
Jolly Queen Elizabeth II of United Kingdom bestowed the prestigious Gold Cross Medal to UK's healthcare system, National Health Service, with Filipino nurse May Parsons and other UK health leaders receiving it. The Queen was joined by her son and heir, Prince Charles, at an intimate ceremony at her residence in Windsor Castle in London. Parsons is the NHS nurse from Modern Matron from University Hospital Coventry and Warwickshire, who delivered the first COVID-19 vaccine. "And you're still alive," the Queen jokingly told Parsons after learning that the Filipina administered the first COVID-19 vaccine in the world in December 2020. Britain was the first country in the world to deploy a COVID-19 vaccine approved by the World Health Organization. "We're terribly, terribly proud of the vaccination rollout," Parsons said. "Yes, it was amazing," the Queen replied. The 96-year-old monarch presented the Gold Cross Medal, the highest non-military award for gallantry, to NHS for its work over the past 74 years and praised its COVID-19 vaccine rollout. Amanda Milling, UK Minister of State for Asia and the Middle East and Member of Parliament for Cannock Chase, said Parsons' presence before Queen Elizabeth shows that the UK is grateful to the 30,000 Filipino nurses working for our NHS.
Pwede tayong kumita ng malaki dito.
Ang gusto ng mabilis na kita, bigla na lang papasok sa eksena.
Ano bang kailangan kong gawin para itigil mo na to? Baka malaki ang kikitain mo. Pabalato naman.
Pwedeng makausap si Mrs. Clara Porras? Ako si Roberto Osorio Chauca. Si Tito.
Tito Osorio Chauca? Ang papa ko?
Ang matagal na nawala sa eksena, bigla na lang magpapakita.
Sarah. Chachita. Chachita ba, anak ko?
Ikaw si Tito. Sino ka ba?
Ako si Ivan, ang ama ni Nico.
Palabra de amor.
Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together. Let's stand together sa Net 25.
Papa! Papa! Harry!
Ililigtas ko siya. Kapag kailangan mamili, Kaninong buhay ang unang ililigtas? Sino ang iyong uunahin?
Doktor, anong ibig niyo?
Si Minho, pamilya at prinsipyo, ang puhunan sa pag-asenso.
Kahit na umasenso siya, galing pa rin siya sa kahirapan at hindi na maalis sa pagkataon niya.
Si Airy, isang surgeon na magaling. Malayo pa ang maaaring marating.
Mapapromote na bilang head surgeon ng anak ko sa ospital. Mas deserve niya higit pa.
Hindi mo na kailangan si Minho.
Si Junseo, ang ambisyon, walang kinikilalang limitasyon.
Pakasalan mo ako.
At si Jiwoo, masagulero.
Ang lalakas ng loob niyo! Tigil niyo yan!
Ito talagang itinuro ko sa anak ko. Na kapag may nakita kang ibang taong inaagrabyado, lumapit ka, tulungan siya. Kahit na mahirap ako, poprotektahan ko siya sa mga taong tulad nyo.
Kapag nalaman kong may ginawa kayo, ako mismo ang maniningil sa'yo. Tandaan mo yan.
Fatal Promise. Simula July 18, 8:30 p.m.
Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together. Let's dance together. Sa Net 25.
Welcome back. The news continues here on ASEAN in Focus, and we're coming to you live still from Manila and Vietnam with Eliana Sebastian. Now, a 76-year-old woman named Miba Satinem was the Indonesian Cultural Hub's best-kept secret for decades. But today, she's a cooking sensation after shooting to fame in the 2019 Netflix series called Street Food Asia. Take a look.
Wiwitane gini ku sok menindan ngewangi timbuk. Yo dangu-dangu saged. Terus kowe dodol apa piye ta nek yo mbok ora isin ora. Yo nek anu tak anu gawe ke dagangan. Yo bareng-bareng yo niku rumiyin nek paitan 100 kok, Pak. Mboten kados sakniki.
Saya itu pertama kali ngerasain lupesnya Mbak Satinem itu tahun 80-an, 88 atau 89. Pertama tahu ya dibeliin sama ibu waktu itu. Nah, sampai sekarang ternyata Mbak Satinem masih sehat, masih jualan. Rasa lupesnya juga tetap sama, gurih, pulen, dan gulanya, juruhnya, kalau kata orang Jogja itu kental, enak Mas.
Kalau saya sih tadi datang jam 6 ya. Tapi di situ antrian nomor 1 sampai 50 udah full. Terus saya datang lagi barusan belum saya kurang tahu ini sekarang jam berapa. Saya dapat nomor antrian nomor 22. Tadi pun saya coba tanya ibu-ibu yang dapat antrian nomor 25-an, saya tanya dia udah ngantri dari jam 5:30.
Major winners Lydia Ko and Kim Yo-ju will be the star attractions when women's professional tour golf returns to Indonesia for the first time in a decade next month. World number 5 Ko of New Zealand and South Korea's 8th-ranked Kim will head a 40-player field for the inaugural Simone Asia Pacific Cup, the first event in the country since the 2012 Indonesia Ladies Open. They will compete over 54 holes of stroke play from August 18 to the 20th for a total of $500,000 in individual prize money at the Pondok Indah Golf Course, Jakarta, the Ladies Asian Tour announced. Their scores will also count towards a team event where an additional $250,000 purse is up for grabs for 22-player teams formed from 15 golf associations across the Asia Pacific.
One of RIMPAC's key personalities, the U.S. 3rd Fleet Commander and concurrent Combined Task Force Commander Vice Admiral Michael Boyle, visits the Philippine Navy frigate BRP Antonio Luna FF151PF on Friday, July 8. The frigate is moored at Joint Base Pearl Harbor, Hickam in Hawaii. Vice Admiral Boyle personally addressed the members of Naval Task Group 80.5, expressing his appreciation and gratitude for helping realize the goals and objectives of the world's largest exercise. The Philippine Navy's third participation in RIMPAC allows our sailors to exchange best practices with and learn from the best navies in the world. RIMPAC exercise aims to provide training opportunity to the participants for sustaining and fostering the relationships critical for the safety and security of sea lanes and interconnected oceans. Members of the Filipino community in Hawaii got an experience of a lifetime in a reception aboard the Philippine Navy's Jose Rizal class frigate, BRP Antonio Luna FF151PF, to commemorate #US Independence Day on July 4, Monday, while moored at Joint Base Pearl Harbor, Hickam in Hawaii. The Philippine Navy ship prepared favorite Filipino dishes for the special guests and welcomed them with the brand of hospitality Filipinos are known for. The hashtag the 4th of July is also of significance for Filipinos as the hashtag Phil-American Friendship Day.
And that's it for today's broadcast. Thank you very much, Eliana, for keeping me company here today on ASEAN.
Thank you so much, Alma, from EBC Vietnam Bureau. This is Eliana Sebastian, and we live in extraordinary times.
And we'll see you back tomorrow, same time, same place, here on ASEAN in Focus. Stay in the news because we live in extraordinary times.
Wow. Meron po tayong pinaghihinalaan na inyong anak. Mama.